On today's episode, I'm speaking with Bria. We start off our conversation on a very heartbreaking tone as Bria explains to me that at the very young age of 11 years old, she made the choice to mother herself and give herself the love and care that she wasn't receiving from her family. She had to step deeply into her maturation as a young girl to mother everyone else around her and is still working to pull those threads back to not give so much outwardly, but to give to herself more. Bria speaks to how she always knew she wanted to have children. She talks about how she had a complete change of lifestyle from partying all the time to slowing down and living more connected to the natural world in Grenada. Meeting her partner and getting pregnant right away, having very unpleasant experiences with her medical midwives, being gaslit about how far she was within her birth process by medical staff at the hospital, having her baby pulled from her body in an unnecessary forceps delivery, and him having a lasting mark on his head to this day, being verbally abused by nursing staff during her early postpartum time, getting pregnant with her second baby and finding a mentor to support her on her journey to birthing free of the system, trying to check out of an Airbnb while being in her active birthing time, birthing her baby in a bathtub alone in that Airbnb. This is such a beautiful story, and again, another wonderful testament to the power of women and proof that birth just works. Women, have you heard? The Free Birthing in Color movement now has a private community space for all women to join. Within this private community, we have monthly village prenatals to celebrate and support the pregnant women moving towards their birthing time. There are monthly community calls to build deeper connection with one another. We have bi-monthly book clubs to gain deeper wisdom of our female bodies. There are guest speakers that will facilitate talks on all things women's health. We have space for mothers to share their in-power birth stories and so much more. You can join this community space for only $6 per month from now until December 21st of this year. I know that you've been seeking connection, support, guidance, knowledge, and newfound friendships. So now is the time to join us and find exactly what you're looking for. Even if you don't identify as a woman of color or an Indigenous woman, you're welcome to be here because we all need to be witnessed in the passages of life that we move through, no matter who we are or what we look like. This community will hold you whether you're pregnant or not pregnant, trying to conceive, don't want children at all, if you've had losses or abortions, if you're a birth or death worker of any kind, a grandmother, an auntie, or wise woman, there's space for you to be seen and share your wisdom to the collective well. Go to primalwomenportal.com/FBC community or check the show notes to become a member today. Hello, Bria. Welcome to the Free Birthing in Color movement. I am so incredibly excited to have you here in this space sharing your birth stories.
Hi, Karma. It's really nice to meet you, and I'm looking forward to telling my story.
Amazing. So, like I said before we were recording, I just want to get straight into it. So the first question I want to ask you is, what is your ancestry and lineage that you're passing on to your children?
Yeah, I am mixed heritage. I was born to a white mother, English mother, and that family, that part of my family, was very much my upbringing that I knew. And my dad is Grenadan, but lived in England. He went over to England with the Windrush generation in the 60s. So he lived his life there. And now you will find me living in Grenada, where I've been for the last 10 years.
Wow. Oh, amazing. I love that. Can you just explain to me where exactly Grenada is? Because I have an idea in my mind, but I don't want to say where it is on the world map because I'm probably wrong.
So in the Caribbean, it's a very, very tiny island, and we're very close to South America, like the Venezuela end.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Okay, amazing. So you're actually just a little bit lower than where I am living right now.
Yeah.
So we're like
Yeah.
island neighbors. Oh, cool. So yeah, the next question I would love to ask you is, where does your mothering journey begin?
Wow, I've thought about this so much over the last week, and it's actually brought a lot of stuff up for
Mm.
me. Because I think I didn't quite realize until I had to sit down and think about the question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as a child, I have no memories of being a person before I suffered these tantrums. Like as a young child, I would have these really bad tantrums that were, kicking and shouting and swearing. And they would only ever end when I was kind of just run out of energy
Mm.
and I would be like a hyperventilating ball of snot on the floor.
Mm.
And that is really what I remember. And they would always be when I was around my mother.
Mm.
Like that seemed to be our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember kind of I wanted, I think, to be held and to be told that things were okay. And I didn't really get that off her.
Mm.
And that was life as a young child. And
Yeah.
then when I was about maybe 7 or 8, my elder sibling started to show signs of being quite misogynistic and aggressive and violent towards me.
Mm.
So I would say at that part of my life, I also started to live with domestic violence. And
Okay.
so life just didn't seem very good. And I used to, especially when my sibling started that, I would ask for help of my mother constantly. And I was just told that I was being a bit of an annoyance and to just
Mm.
leave her alone. And
Mm.
I remember this one night, because she used to work late sometimes, so she would leave me with my sibling. And it was just like a normally bad night. And I remember sitting in the kitchen waiting for her to come home so I could talk to her. And I tried to talk to her. And she just said, leave me alone. Like, I just had enough.
Mm.
And she just walked off. And I sat there and I kind of had a good conversation to myself. And I said, no one actually cares about you enough to intervene and try and sort out this situation. And my behavior of these tantrums, I could feel were actually going to harm me if I
Mm.
continued. And I thought, I'm going to go down a road that is, your life will not be good if this continues.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, how can I make it better for myself? And I sat there and I made a very sure decision. From that day onwards, I was not going to love my mother anymore.
Wow.
And I thought, because then, it wouldn't be so hurtful that everyone is just like turning a blind eye to everything going on in my life.
Mm.
And I took myself off to bed and I woke up the next day and my life was completely changed. My
Wow.
attitude changed and I I started mothering myself.
Wow. And how old were you, did you say?
I think I know that I was early secondary school, so I think maybe 11 or 12
Oh my
around
goodness.
then. And
Wow.
yeah, from then on, I just thought I'm just going to do everything for myself. I'm going to look after myself.
Mm.
I'm in charge of my own life, and I really need to do this right. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good life.
Mm.
And also, like, because my mother has multiple sclerosis, so a lot of the time she was unwell. So as
Mm.
well as mothering myself, I started to also mother her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That's intense. That's yeah.
Yeah, I sat down and I thought about it this week, and I really came to the conclusion that this is where it started, because I knew as a child that I did a lot,
Mm-hmm.
like, all the practical things I would do myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also the emotional things I would do myself. I would sit down and I would have conversations with myself every day to kind of work out what was going on with the madness
Right.
in my
Okay.
life.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then I would give myself advice. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that saved me time and time again. That saved me because I realized I can see quite clearly when someone might be perpetrating behavior on me, but I
Yeah.
understand that that's them.
Yeah.
And I think that always comes from like talking things through with myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I would give myself the respect as if someone was talking to me. And what advice would I give you? Like, what do
Right.
you deserve in life?
Wow. Wow. That's like that's a huge shift that people I know people that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s and onwards that don't even have that piece of awareness, in their own selves.
Mm,
And you had that from, 10, 11, 12 years old as a child, which
yeah,
is like, it's incredible that you had that, but also really sad and heartbreaking that you had to get to that point through, making this declaration that you were no longer going to love your mother and mother your own self. So it's, both
yeah,
sides like, wow, that's amazing, but also so heartbreaking and sad that that's how you got to where you
yeah.
got to. So
And
just,
I
wow.
think after my massive free birth experience that we'll get onto,
Mm,
so much else shifted for me. And one thing that I really understood was my wiseness to the world. Um, and mothering people comes from a place of trauma. And
mm,
so at the moment, I'm really working on bringing that back
yeah.
and actually refusing to be that role for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
just like myself, my children, and people that I'm very, very close to. But I did tend to take on that role quite quickly with people. So
Yeah.
it feels second nature to be like that. So I have to do a lot of hard work of just being like, yeah, actually
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here for you. I'm not there for that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So then, speaking of your birth, do you want to get into the lead up to this first kind of pregnancy and so on experience that you had? What, because you were then, mothering yourself from such a young age until you first got pregnant. What was that experience for you
Time.
like?
Yeah. So I lived in London. I feel like I did what London had to offer. I worked a lot. I played a lot.
Mm,
Um, I had a good time. It was nice. I One thing that I've always had is I've had the ability to kind of be my true self
mm,
around other people, away
mm,
from my family. So I always had like a good group of friends, and I had a good time. And then in my early 30s, I kind of found myself quite bored of that.
mm-hmm.
And I thought, because having children was something, probably the only thing in life that I've really known that I want to do.
Okay.
Like everything else can kind of, yeah, I could do it. I could do it. I could not. But
Mm-hmm.
having children is something that I've always known that I wanted to do.
Okay.
And it was getting to a point in my early 30s where I was getting bored of that party lifestyle.
Mm,
And I felt a change. And I thought, well, this is probably naturally me getting to a place where I can enter motherhood for my own children.
mm,
Because I know that it is going to be like, I want it to be intense. I want it to be full on.
mm-hmm.
And I also decided to come over to Grenada about the same time. I'd
Okay.
visited like a few years back, but it was very much like a holiday based thing. So I decided to book a month, just go on my own,
Mm,
go and meet my family. And I just fell in love with the place.
mm,
And I fell in love with my family, and I was around my cousin, and he had young children. And it was just like life was going to the beach and fishing, and
mm.
then making a fire on the beach and cooking and
Yeah.
picking mangoes from the tree and just running free.
Yeah.
And I remember parts of my childhood being that. Like I grew up on a council estate where all the children just played out together.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a level of freedom there.
Mm,
And I'm not seeing it. so much in places like London. And I was in Grenada and I didn't want to go back.
Okay.
And I just thought, well, I kind of have to go back. So I went back, and my dad was given some money. The government had been underpaying his pension for years. So suddenly they gave him like some money.
Yeah.
So he gave me a couple of £1,000, and I'd never had that amount of money. And I thought, there I am. I'm off. And I bought a tent, and I packed up my stuff and shipped my stuff out. And I went and lived on the piece of family land.
Wow.
And yeah, and I just went and lived in this tent. And I think a lot of to do with, I didn't want to bring up children in London, but if I'm really honest, I didn't want to bring up children too close to my family, because I didn't want them to be their everyday experience, their regular experience of life. It was never going to work for me. So I needed that distance. And then I met my partner, and we both, quite early on in the relationship, we both wanted children. So we thought, let's do this. Let's have a child. And so we did. We got pregnant quite quickly. And because I hadn't been living in Grenada too long, I felt the need to travel back to England to birth. I didn't really feel like that settled here yet. So I actually had to go back because my dad died suddenly when I was like a couple of months pregnant. So I had to go back for his funeral. And while I was there, I phoned up the GP and I said, I'm pregnant. And they said, okay. They booked in a booking-in appointment. And I went in and I met this midwife, who was my designated midwife. And there was just something about her that made my guard go up. And it was that guard that I can, like, I would say, like, I'm a professional when it comes to putting up a guard, that you can't read me, you can't get past a certain thing. But it was my natural instinct towards her. And I had the check-in appointment. I had a couple of scans, and then I said, I'm going back to Grenada. I'm going to come back at 32 weeks. So that's what I did. And so me and my partner flew back, and I had a couple of appointments with her. Whilst I was in Grenada, what I did was I went to see a private GP who just like took my blood pressure, a urine test, done a growth measurement, and that was it. It was quite basic care that I was getting. And I went back into the midwife system in the NHS, and I was just a bit closed off with her. But the appointments all said everything was fine. Just, come back. I had an appointment booked for 40 weeks. And before the 40 weeks appointment, maybe for about 3 days or so, at night, I was getting these cramps, and it was enough to keep me up. So I just didn't really get much sleep. But I didn't think anything bad of it. I just felt like I have trust in my body. My baby is doing something, but there's no reason to think the baby doesn't know what it's doing. And there's something going on, and there's some movement. And I went to the 40-week scan, and I said to the midwife, and not the scan, the appointment. And I said to the midwife, I think the baby's coming because I'm having these pains in the night, but they go in the day. And she said to me, don't be stupid. If your baby was coming, you would know it.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Oh my gosh.
So then I was just like a bit, like God went back up. Oh, but I forgot to mention that in between these appointments, I had gone to the antenatal classes that the NHS give. It was like once a week for 3 weeks or so. And but I was quite closed off in those sessions because I just thought, I just want a natural birth. Birth doesn't frighten me. There's part of me that looks forward to it. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
something that I've always dreamed of.
Yeah.
And so in the lessons, I kind of just took notes, but I didn't pay much attention to what they were saying. And so at this appointment for the 40 weeks, she'd said to me that my baby wasn't coming and just dismissed what I'd said.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, well, if you want to move stuff on, you could try sex.
Okay.
And I just went, no, that I'm just not open for that at
Mm-hmm.
all. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
But I just said to her like no, and she then stopped talking to me, and she turned to my partner, and she said to him, because you're scared that you might hurt her. And at this point, she's not including me in the conversation. She's talking to him.
Wow. Yeah.
And she said, because you're scared that you might hurt, you mustn't be scared that you'll hurt her. It's all fine. And he's looking at me because he's also taking my lead of me being quite cold to just
Yeah.
don't interact with her that much.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, like, you're not up for me having any body autonomy at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have said to you, I don't want to have sex. And it's almost like you turning to him and trying to persuade him,
To do
like,
that.
to
Yeah.
do that.
That's
Like,
so gross and like such a big um crossing of boundaries, you know? It's like, ugh. And I
yeah,
hear things like that so often um with medical midwives that they try and get something out of you, and if it doesn't work, if the partner's there or if anybody else is in the room, they'll like go to that person to try
right,
and
yeah.
get them to convince the mother, because for whatever reason it's like, oh, the mother knows nothing, she's stupid and just
Mm,
doesn't get what her body's doing. It's
yeah.
absolutely
And looking back,
ridiculous.
it's such a big sign. But at that time, because um, I didn't feel that I needed to educate myself
Mm-hmm.
in birth because I
Yeah.
just thought women have babies all the time. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm physically strong, I'm mentally strong,
Yeah.
like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just assumed that my body would know what to do.
Yeah.
That was my opinion on it.
Yeah.
And then she said to me, okay, like, jump on the bed and we'll give you a sweet.
Oh gosh.
Sorry,
Oh no, no,
big truck going past.
that's
She
right.
said, jump on the bed and we'll give you a sweet.
Oh.
Now, I have to say, I'm not even sure at the time that I really knew what a sweet was.
Okay, yeah.
I kind of assumed that I wasn't listening in class, but also people have maybe pointed out that they don't particularly share this information
Mm-hmm.
within the class.
Yeah.
And so I sat on the bed to take your underpants off and sit on the bed. So I sat there, and she explained to me what she was doing as she was doing it. She didn't explain what was going to happen before. She didn't ask for consent or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. And so she stuck her fingers in my vagina and gave me a sweet. And she
Mm-hmm.
made a comment to me. She said, oh, you really don't feel pain, do you? So I hope that you're there when your baby, I hope I'm there when your baby's born.
Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's awful. That's so gross. And
It's so gross. And I
ugh.
think, but like looking back, I'm just like, how did you not pick up on these things at the time? But you don't. Like, this is how
Mm.
they get away with
Yeah, and
this
if
stuff.
you don't know, you just kind of think that that's like normal. And if it's your first time, especially your first time going
Mm,
into your pregnancy and birth, yeah, you would expect that like my body knows what to do. But then when somebody else is like commanding you, get on the bed, take your underwear off, this is what I'm doing, it's kind of like,
yeah.
okay, like you let it happen under the, and this is like just me assuming this, and from the stories I've heard, you let it happen under the mindset that you think these women or these doctors, these nurses, whomever it may be, is doing this because it's going to benefit you in a really positive way, you know? So of
Yes,
course you're going to be like,
yeah,
oh, okay, cool. My baby's coming. They're going to do this because it's going to lead to something, you know, nice and whatever.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
true.
gosh.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's just like, oh, that's just so inhumane and
yeah,
so gross and awful.
yeah. But unfortunately, a little bit of how it kind of went on from there. And I know that all like pregnancies are different and all births are different, but I have to say my two babies, um, to me, both pregnancies were exactly the same,
Okay.
exactly the same. And I feel like they were the same up
Mm,
until the point that I was interfered with
okay.
into the first one. And that
Mm,
obviously brings like a lot of anger up because I just think
mm,
it then led on to this cascade,
right.
which was so I went home and then nothing for a couple of days. And then a couple of days after, um, in the evening, maybe about 8 o'clock at night, I started to get what I was calling at the time contractions.
Okay.
And they were like more definite. And it's like, okay, so the baby's coming. And I was staying at this family members, and they are hoarders. So
Okay.
there was very like lack of space going
Okay.
on. So I had like a yoga ball. So I blew up the yoga ball and I was just like sat in the room because there was like about a square meter
Mm,
for me to move. And then there was the bed as well. And I just sat on the ball and I was just relaxed and calm. And my partner wasn't being very supportive because he just fell asleep,
mm, mm,
which there was a level of annoyance, but
mm,
also I just thought it doesn't need to be a problem because I'm quite happy just being on my own in this dark room. It's
mhm,
fine. But I started uh, late that night. I started to have doubts, and I thought I am so tired. I've not
mm,
slept in days because the babies had me up like at
mhm.
regular intervals. And I had doubts that I could do this. So
Okay.
I don't have the energy to birth. I don't know how this is going to work out for me. So I looked at my notes that I'd taken from the lesson because I remember them saying that there was something that you can take and it will knock you out so you can sleep. So
Mm,
I looked it up. I thought, I think that I just need to sleep and then I can do this. So I looked it up in my notes and it's like, okay, that's diamorphine. So I phoned up the hospital and I explained the situation. I said, look, the contractions are only every so often, but I have no energy. I'm really tired. I want to come in and have some diamorphine so I can sleep.
mm.
And the person on the end of the phone just said to me, we don't do that. So don't come in, and put the phone down.
Oh my gosh.
And so I thought, okay, because I was annoyed, but
Yeah.
also quite relieved at the answer because I didn't want to do that.
Mm,
Um, but I felt like in the moment, I felt like that's what I wanted to do. But I knew in my head that I didn't want to do that.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, so I just went back in on myself. And then around 2 o'clock in the morning, it was like my contractions were like three in every 10 minutes, which is what the midwife said.
Mhm.
When it's three in every 10 minutes, you call your designated midwife. She will come out and examine you and decide whether you're ready to go into the hospital.
Okay.
So I phoned my midwife. She didn't answer the phone. And so I left a message and she phoned me back maybe about 10 minutes later. And she said to me, I'm not working, but the call divert's not working.
Yeah.
So don't call me back. I will come to the hospital and see you in the morning when my shift starts.
Oh my gosh, this is
No,
ridiculous.
he didn't say like, so here's the midwife who's on call,
Mm,
here's their number. Like it was just like a nothingness. And I
wow.
just, because I was just thinking, oh, fuck everyone. Honestly, I just
Mm-hmm.
the annoyance. And so I thought, let me just relax and chill. Like, I'm quite happy here. I'll just stay
Yeah.
here. So I did that. And then about 8 o'clock in the morning, I was like, right, I need to go to the hospital now. So we phoned for a taxi. There was a 2 hour wait for the taxi. So I was like,
Whoa.
okay, I can't wait 2 hours. But we were only staying on a normal day, maybe a 10-15 minute walk from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to my partner, I said, let's just walk. It's fine. So he got the bag, we walked, we hit, because this is like central London,
Okay.
in rush hour.
Oh no.
And you know, like the streets are busy, everyone, no one's looking where they're going. They're all just rushing, the cars, the buses. It was just very intense.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like having these contractions in the road in the middle of it. And we got up there and I was seen by booking in midwife. And she done like a little bit of monitoring, something. She didn't do a vaginal examination. And the contractions had slowed down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And her attitude was, it was almost like, without saying, she was accusing me of lying, that they
Oh.
were so far apart. And I'm saying to her, no, they were. That's why I've come in, they were. And she's like, well, they're obviously not. And we were getting into like a debate about it. And she's like, you're just not ready. You're going to have to go home.
Oh gosh.
And my partner he wasn't speaking up. But that, yeah, I don't think that he's capable of that. I was making assumptions without any real thought that he would be capable of this. So I phoned the family member that I was staying with, and I said, can you come up here? They're trying to send me back and I don't want to go back. So they came up, and the midwife was just like, you need to just go home. And I'm begging her, I'm saying, I'm so tired. So tired. We live on the 4th floor with no lift. I don't even think I've got the energy to get up the stairs. Is there not somewhere where I can just lie down? Like, I don't want to go. And she had an I don't care attitude towards me.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and I'm just like, but I don't want to go. Don't want to go. And I was almost begging this woman. And in the end, she turned to me dead in the eye and she said, listen, you could do what you want. I don't care. You can go where you want. You're just not staying here. And at that point, I could have cried, and I just thought, I just need to get out. I don't want to go, but I also just need to get out and away from this place.
That's so terrible. That's so
Yeah.
sad. That's so sad to hear of somebody working in the medical industry speaking to a mother in her birth process in that way. Like, that just breaks my freaking heart. Oh,
It's sad and it's standard. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes it so awful, is like, that's just standard practice of care.
And
That's normalized.
Yeah. But they said to me, your waters haven't even broken. So they gave me that as a point of coming back. Go home. When your waters break, come back. I went back. And I decided to get in the bath. So my partner ran a bath for me, and I was in there for like 20 minutes or so. Then I got out and my waters broke. I was like, okay, get dressed, go back. So I was at home for like less than an hour that I was actually there. And I went back, we got a taxi, I went back in. And as I went in, I locked eyes with this midwife. And I was just like, in my brain, I was just looking at her in a way of just saying, you see, like, because before we left the first time, when we were going down in the lift, I had 2 contractions in the lift. So when we were downstairs waiting for the taxi, the family member ran back up to the apartment and said, no, she just had 2 contractions on the way down. You're really sending her home. And they did. And so another midwife dealt with me. I had a midwife and I had a student midwife there as well. And I said, right, I want the birthing pool. So they ran the pool for me. Oh no, she examined me. And when she examined me, she said, "You're 10 centimeters, you're ready to go."
Oh,
And that's, yeah. And
wow.
that's when they ran the pool. I went and got in the pool. Um, I was given no opportunity to naturally push. It was all coach pushing. This midwife had her hand on my stomach the whole time.
Oh
And
my
it was
gosh.
just like, okay, when you feel the next one, like push. And it just went on like that. And I was using a bit of gas and air. And then after a little bit of time, the midwife said, "Can you stop using the gas and air? It might be slowing things down." So I stopped. And then after another bit of time, she said, "Can you get out the pool? That might be slowing things down." So she put towels on the floor, like this really horrid, hard, cold, tiled floor. So she put towels on the floor and there was a pillow there. And she had her hand on my stomach and she was coach pushing. And this stuff just seemed to go on for hours. Because at this point, we're back it was the evening. And at some point, I just felt no difference between when I went in the room to this point. And I said to her, "I feel like this isn't progressing." And she said, "I'm glad you said that. I was just thinking the same thing." Okay. So she said, "Let's get you in the other room and get you looked at by the doctor," whoever it was. And so they came and examined me. They said, "Okay, we're going to take you in and we're going to give you a forceps delivery." So that's what they did. I went in, they numbed me up. They, they delivered the baby by forceps. My partner watched that. And after, he said to me that they said that the clamp was around the baby's head. And the doctor had like his foot up on the table to get the strap. And that's how they were like, oh, yeah. And my son's still got a mark on his head to this day. He's 8.
Yeah.
But yeah, they handed me the baby and it was nice, but also I felt quite numb about everything. And I said to them, and then they were like, "Okay, we're going to get the placenta out." So they must have pulled that out.
Okay, yeah.
And then I said, "Oh, I'm keeping that placenta." And the doctor said to me, "Oh, that's already been incinerated." But this was in couple of seconds.
Oh
I
my
have my
God.
doubts because I know they do things like,
Yeah, they probably just threw it in a trash bag and then they will
yeah,
incinerate it, but it probably wasn't done. Oh God, that's so horrible. And to hear that your
yeah, and
son still has a mark from the forceps, like forceps delivery is actually very violent. I've seen one happen in the only hospital birth that I'd ever attended, and it was like I was almost in tears at how, like you
yeah,
said, the doctor had their foot up. For yours, it wasn't the same, but like the way they were pulling on this little tiny, it was a tiny
mm,
baby's head with these metal clamps. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, something terrible is going to happen if they keep yanking on this baby's head like that.
yeah.
It's,
And
oof.
I've done a lot of work um on forgiving myself and working through things that I felt went wrong with my son's birth. But I also do believe like that this created my partner a lot of trauma,
Mm, yeah.
that he is yet to deal with. Um, but I think it damaged us, it damaged our relationship, it damaged a lot of
Mm.
things.
Oh.
Um, But when I said that I wanted the placenta and he said that it had been incinerated, he stood over me and he was kind of giving me some speech about, "Oh, you think you want it, but you don't want it." My wife thought that she wanted it and we ended up taking it home, put it in the freezer. In the end, we actually just put it in the bin. So again, it's like you think that you know me and you can tell me what
Yeah.
I want. And because I had an idea that I was going to bring it back to Grenada along with my dad's ashes, and I was
Oh,
going to
yeah.
plant them. I was going to plant them together.
Oh.
But obviously, like you've just been handed your baby, it's just like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just said something to me, whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
And then I was a couple of nights in the hospital because they just automatically done to my son whatever they wanted. So they kind of they gave him like the vitamin K injection, or and so he ended up with jaundice.
Oh yeah.
So we had to stay in a little bit longer. And I was in the hospital on the ward with all these other women, and I just thought this is just a really horrible place to be. And in the nighttime, this doctor came round, and she just to check on me, and she said, "So how are you getting along with the feeding?" And I said, "Oh, I think it's okay." And she said to me, "You know, you don't have to just feed in this position." And she had me maneuvering and trying different things, and it helped because the feeding was hard. And then the next day, there was this other midwife who was just really horrible to me. And she was coming round, and my son was on the breast the whole time. And then whenever she would come, he would get off it. So she would accuse me of not trying to feed him. And I'm kind of going, no, I am. Like, literally, he's just sat there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And she was really confrontational with me. She went and she came round a couple of times, and I had people there, I had visitors. And the first time I had someone there whose wife was in there the year before, and he said, don't you have a feeding class here? And then she said, "Yeah, we do." And I said, "Well, what's the information?" And she said, "I don't know." And she walked off. And then the second time she came round, I had someone else there, and she said to me, "You know, I'm really fed up with you not trying. Your baby's not leaving in here until you feed this jaundice out, and you need to try." And I said, "I am trying." And I said, there was this really nice doctor came round in the middle of the night, and she helped me with some positioning. So it's a little bit easier, but I am trying. And because I'd praised this doctor, that annoyed her. So I said the doctor was really nice. So then she said to me, "So you're saying that I'm not nice?" And I actually laughed because I didn't believe that could be serious. And then in the end, the jaundice went through, and I was discharged. I think I was in there for like 3 nights. And I went back. And I went and stayed somewhere else. So a different midwife came and visited me on whatever day they do, like day 3 or something.
Yeah.
And it was hard, like having this newborn. And I was like, in the night, I was up all night, and I had like a Moses basket. And I was getting up, I was feeding him, I was putting him in the Moses basket. And as soon as I put him down, he would wake up again. And I was just sleep deprived, and it just felt hard. And then one night I fell asleep with him in the bed. And then next thing I knew, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and we both slept really well. Like, he would stir, I would give him the breast, he would eat and go back to sleep. And I thought, there we are, that's me. That's my parenting. I've just had an amazing night's sleep with a newborn. Fuck that Moses basket, you're in the bed. Like, I ordered the next mattress, I threw my partner out the bed, I ordered the next mattress, put the mattress on the floor, so like he had a mattress right next to us. But I said, you know, you can't sleep next to the baby, only me. And the midwife came. She said, "How's the sleeping? How's it all going?" I said, "Yeah, it's great." And I said, "Oh, he's in the bed." She went, no, you can't do that, it's really dangerous, all this stuff. And she was trying to say to me, "Oh, take your used clothes, line the Moses basket so the baby could smell you." And I'm just sitting there thinking, this just doesn't make sense.
No.
Doesn't make sense. Why would I need to fool my baby into thinking that I'm there? And I don't think he's that stupid.
Yeah, totally.
So I learned at that point just to say what you need me to say to get you to go away.
Yep.
And that was that was really my attitude with the midwives and the healthcare professionals from then on. I don't need to argue with you. I just kind of go, oh, okay. And then just go back and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the way that he entered the world.
Wow.
And so there's a 7-year age gap between my children.
Okay.
It was quite a while. We just couldn't afford financially to have another child. And then I came into a bit of money, and I thought, right, what I would do with the money, and because my partner also wanted another child, that's what we're going to do with the money. We can afford to have another baby. And I wasn't putting too much thought into the birth process and stuff. And we got pregnant, and I just knew there was something about me that was just, I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't telling people.
Right. And you were in Grenada at this time?
I was in Grenada, yeah. Okay. At the time, I was in Grenada. You know, my partner knew, and our son knew, and a couple of really close friends knew, but I just found it really hard to share the information.
Okay.
With the rest of the world. I think that I didn't feel it was safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to protect his pregnancy a lot more. And I didn't know how it was going to be, but I knew that I was not going to be going into the hospital. That was like 100% not going to be going into the hospital.
Yeah.
I looked into trying to get a private midwife in Grenada because I would not go in the hospital here either. Because although they don't have the facilities to mess around with you physically too much, mentally it's just not, it's not great. Like lack of choice. And so I was due to go to England for like my yearly visit. And so I went and I phoned up my GP and I said, I'm pregnant. And they said, we don't do that here anymore. And it's like, oh, okay, don't do it here. So as they said, you know, you got to do a self-referral or something. And it took me a while to figure out how to do it. And I referred for a scan. And then I wasn't getting the booking in appointment. It just wasn't coming through. I couldn't find out what care team I was under. It was just really difficult. But I found myself feeling okay about that. And feeling quite good about not having the interaction with them.
Okay.
And eventually I got seen. I think I was maybe 22 weeks pregnant, that I eventually got seen when I should have been seen maybe at 12 weeks. And I went, what happened? So the situation with my family suddenly got really bad. Like I was keeping the pregnancy to myself. I found that I didn't feel safe to tell them that I was pregnant. And there was one night that there was a situation where one of my family members had brought a new man into their life.
Okay.
And the new man physically hurt my child.
Oh.
And it was in front of quite a few people.
Right.
And yeah, he physically hurt my child. And I looked over at my family member. I removed him, looked over, and they were just looking at the ceiling, pretending not to see anything.
Right.
And I removed us from the situation. And then a couple of days later, something else came up with this man. This time it involved me. And I couldn't not say anything. Now, I learned not to say things because you can't win with them.
Okay.
They are always right. You will never win. And over the years of being a parent and finding my power as a parent, I've occasionally had to step up and go, you can't do that with my son. You can't do that with me. And every time I do it, it puts me in a dangerous position where I'm kind of threatened.
Okay.
I'm threatened by being told that I'm an unsuitable parent, my child's not safe around me. Like they say things like this, which is quite a dangerous situation for me, especially with them being white and me being black. It very much seems like you can make these claims on me and you are going to be believed. Like that's the way it feels. It's even extra dangerous for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when this thing happened with this man and my son, and then the man and me, I couldn't hold it back. And I went, this is what's happened. No, and I'm not going to put up with it. And you need to understand that. Now, the consequences of that for me was that things went a little bit silent for the next day. And then I was woken up in the middle of the night by them entering my room. And what I can only describe as they Karened me.
Really?
Yeah. They stood over me, sleeping in my baby next to me, and they Karened me. And they started shouting the victim, and they it went into this mental situation, and they were threatening, they were physically trying to get my child.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to physically fight to get out of that situation.
Oh my gosh.
And I did that. I physically fought them off.
While you were pregnant?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I took my child and I ran to the neighbor. Which luckily the neighbor has witnessed enough things over the years to understand what my situation is. Okay. And she had always actually said to me, if you ever need to come, you just come. So we ran, the police got involved. The police actually, and they were basically trying to tell the police that they need to take my child.
Oh my gosh. Oof.
Yeah. But it was so hysterical, just on a next level of mental, that it was unbelievable, which I feel like really saved me in the end. It was that extreme. And actually, it was the police. This police officer, this male police officer said to me, it sounds like you're being gaslighted. And I thought, oh. And then from that information, I then, later on, I went and I really figured out what this relationship was about, and try and backpedal and work out when this relationship when it started to be so. And but I had to. So the next day, I was due to go out of London, far out of London, to go visit a friend anyway. So we stayed at this neighbour's. I went to my friends, and because the police were involved, I'm getting calls from child protection.
Oh gosh.
Stuff. Luckily, they were satisfied with the conversation that they had with me. I made a promise that I will not bring my child into that situation again, which I knew I wouldn't, because it was so extreme this time that I wasn't prepared to do that. But I had this checking in appointment booked in, and I felt like I needed to go to it still. So I went back into London to do this checking in appointment. And I walked in, and it was just after COVID a bit. So everyone's wearing their masks and stuff. And I walked in and I thought, oh, I recognize you. And the midwife said to me, did I deliver your last baby? And I thought, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
I hate you. But I also don't care, because you know what? Let me just do what I have to do, and then I'm off. I'm going back to Grenada in a few days anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So I did that. And in the checking in appointment, she was filling out my book for me. And she wasn't asking me certain things. She was asking me a few things, but a lot of things she wasn't asking. So when we left the appointment, I opened up the book and I looked in, and she'd just written place of birth hospital.
Right.
Without like discussing it with me. Like, she just made the decision and put it down in my notes and stuff. And I walked out of there, and I just thought, I don't think I'm going to see you again. Not sure what's going to happen, but I can't go and get this care of you. And I came back to Grenada, and I just kind of like, I took a couple of weeks just to relax and come down off this crazy situation that had happened. And I'd been for a while, I'd been going through social media and looking at all these birth accounts and all these women giving birth, and you know, really falling in love with the idea of giving birth again.
Yeah.
And when I found out I was pregnant, I contacted a birth photographer, Zadie. Because I thought, yeah, this birth is going to really be something. It's going to be a special occasion, and I love photography, and I'm going to have this documented. So we'd agreed for her to be my birth photographer. And sitting, looking on social media and watching all these birthers, I came across this account, Kemi Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
And she does a lot of lives talking to women about their birth experiences, and some of them are free birthers. And I listened to one, and I just thought, every single thing that you've just said makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it that I'm unsure of. There's nothing in that I think needs to be added. Like, well, that's how you give birth to a child. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So I went on to Kemi's website, and I booked in a chat with her. We met each other, and she said, so how what can I do for you? And I said, I think that I'm gonna free birth my baby. I said, I think I could do that. She said, of course you could do that. I said, yeah, I can. She said, yeah. And then that was a split decision made. That's what I was going to do.
Wow.
So we agreed for like a group of sessions, because I thought, right, I'm going into this and I feel like I need someone that I can talk to on a regular basis. So I booked sessions with her. I felt that my partner was just not capable of being the only person there when I free birth. So I discussed with her, and I said, I think that I needed a doula. So I asked Sadie, because she was booked in to be a photographer, and she does birth keeping herself as well.
Okay.
So we agreed on her doing that. And I thought, I had this thing in my head. I thought, right, I looked into doing this before I booked Zadie, I looked into being in Grenada, and I just thought, that doesn't seem okay. There's no laws or anything written down that I can go and look at. And I just could see them just cussing me out after I'd done it. And I'd probably end up in the local newspaper, and it would just be like a big thing. And it's like, I can't. So I am going to go back to England to do this.
Okay.
And I thought that I would be there, and my partner would be there, and my son would be there. And I booked us on a hypnobirthing course.
Oh, yeah.
And online. And my partner was just being a bit rubbish about attending. And
attending
so
attending the hypno courses. Okay.
The hypnobirthing course. So after a couple of sessions of it being an issue for him attending, I just said to him, you're not, like, I feel like you're not in this with me. And I sacked him as a birth partner. I just said, you know, you could physically be there, you could be in the corner or something, but I'm not considering you part of this process. I need more support than that. And then I decided that what I would do is, because I had to fly I couldn't fly past 36 weeks is what the airlines say. So I thought, I'm going to go to London by myself, and my partner and my son can fly a month later. So I get to have a month to myself. And that's what I did. And I was just hanging out in London. And the day before they were supposed to fly, I'd been having these cramps overnight, the same as what I did with my firstborn, for a couple of nights before. So I contacted Zadie and I said, like, just to let you know, this is the movement that's going on. And I was in this tiny little studio because it was just me, and I was due to move Airbnb to a 2-bedroom place where I was thinking I'm going to birth there, and the family's going to be there. So it was just me on my own, and I was having these pains, and I was packing up the Airbnb because I was due to move. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, well, this is still going to be days. It could even be longer. I had a mucus show, and I thought, well, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot.
Yeah.
And I was just very relaxed about the whole thing. And then in the morning, on a Sunday morning, I was due to check out of the Airbnb at 11. And I could check in my next Airbnb at midday. So I kind of had to stay where I was until 11. But that morning I woke up and I just felt the need like to poo all the time. I was just getting up and down on the toilet, back to bed. And I just then thought, these pains that I have overnight usually go away in the morning, and they're not going. But I just felt it was just like I just needed to poo. Like that's all it was. And then they weren't going away. So I contacted Zadie and I said, like, just so you know, I'm having these cramps, but like usually they go away, but they're not really going away. So she said, okay, do you want me to come? And I said, no, it's fine. I've got a taxi booked. I'm going to check out at 11 and go over to the other Airbnb. So she said, or I could take you. I could come and drive you over with your stuff. And I said, no, it's fine. Because I think I still struggle to get help from people that I really need.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it's fine. Like, I'm here. And then I put down the phone. I thought, oh, actually, maybe you should take me. I'm not sure if I could deal with like packing up the taxi and all this. So I said, can you take me? She said, yeah, no problem. I'll come over. And I said, no, it's fine. At this point, it was maybe about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I said, it's fine. Come at 11. That's checkout time. Okay. Come at 11. So she said, okay. And I put down the phone and I started to really feel this pain. And I thought, wow, that's painful. Like, that is really painful. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe the baby would come sometime today.
Yeah.
And I had a few doubts because I thought, I'm not up for this pain. I don't remember it being this painful. It just feels very intense. And so I messaged her and I said, they weren't going away. She said, well, how often are they? And I said, I don't know. I said, well, maybe time them. So I timed them and I sent her a message saying, well, I've just had like 3 in 12 minutes. She said, that's quite a lot. And I was like, okay. And then she said, I'll come over. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm all right. And then she's like, okay. And then I put the phone down and I just felt so much pain. I thought, actually, I want someone just to be with me. I don't think anything's going to move. Like, you know, this is, my labors take hours, and like Zebedee's was like a whole day.
Yeah.
So I phoned her and I said, actually, can you come? I just want you to be here. So she said, yeah, I'm coming now. And she doesn't live that far.
Okay.
And then the pain just took me, and I stood in the kitchen and I was like, okay, what do you have to do practically? I think the bath looked comfortable because I was worried about dirtying the sheets.
Okay.
So like, in case anything happens, I want to get in the bed. Let me go and sit in the bath. But I think once I get in that bath, I'm not going to be able to get out without Zadie's help. And I'm thinking, she could come, she can get me out the bath, she can pack up the car, we can drive to the other side of London, and I'll have my baby. And so I thought, right, practically, what do you have to do? And I said, okay, you've got to take the key and put it on the outside of the door so Zadie can let herself in.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I had another word. I said, you're on your own and you're fine, but you really need to remember that you are on your own. Don't be tempted to call upon anyone who is not good for you. Like, because I could see maybe just like a temptation of asking someone to come just because I wasn't on my own.
Yeah.
And it's like, you stay on your own, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And I thought, oh, I need to poo again. So I sat on the toilet. And then next thing, I just let out this, it was like a roar, a moo, a something. And I thought, oh, that's something. That's something. And then I thought, right, let me go and sit in the bath. So I sat in the bath and I could feel like this ring of fire.
Okay.
And because with Zebedee, they'd numb me up. So I didn't get to feel any of this. So it was like a first time for it all.
Yeah.
And it was just like burning. And I thought, oh, okay. Already. And still I'm thinking, but maybe that doesn't mean that the baby's coming right now.
Yeah.
And I was just in pain. And I said to myself, okay, let me just reach down and feel in between my legs. And I reached down and I was just wide open. And there was something coming out me.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like really smooth. And so I retracted my hand.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, I just didn't want to know. Don't want to know what that is. And looking back on it, I understand what that was. And I think it's because I know my babies have a lot of hair.
Okay. Yeah.
And this was just smooth. So I was like, that's not a head. Like I wasn't thinking this through, but I think that was my natural reaction. It's not a head and it's not foot. So maybe it's a bum or something. And I felt like I didn't need that information. So I just retracted my hand really quickly. And then next thing, my body just pushed and I was on all fours. I was comfortable like that. And I was a bit worried about catching them. So I turned around and I sat on my bum and because it was like just half out. And I sat on my bum and I just sat there and I was like, oh. Only at that point, I was like, I'm having a baby now.
Oh my gosh.
That was the realization. And then I just sat there and then my body just like naturally just done a second push. And I put my hands down and I reached down and caught it and I pulled it up and it was this baby, but in a sack.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at it and it took me like, I don't know, a split second because it just seemed very alien. It was just like, huh? And I could see this face pushed up in the sack. And I looked at it and I just stared and I thought, wow, like it was just mind blowing.
Wow.
I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. But at the same time, I thought, this I haven't actually done any research on and I don't know how you are in there. I just want to kind of hold you like this, but I don't know how you are. So I used my little finger to hook under their chin and I pulled it over and I just pulled her to my chest and like no crying or anything, but she was talking, like just talking to me. And there was like a towel rail above and I just pulled the towel rail, the towel down and just put the towel over us. And I just sat there. And then I got a text. The phone was like right next to me. I got a text and it's Zadie going, I'm 5 minutes away. And I think from me asking her to come, she probably got there in like 20 minutes. She couldn't have got there any quicker.
Wow.
And so I sent her a text going, they're here. And then she phoned me up and she was like, what? And I said, they're here. I said, I'm all right, they're here. And I realized like by my language of they, because I didn't know it was a boy or a girl. And I said, no, I've just had the one baby. And she was like, okay, I'm fine, I'm coming. And then I just sat in the bath and then the next thing I knew the door opened and Zadie walked in. I was just sat there and And she just looked at me. She said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." Like I was just on cloud nine. And she's just like beaming away, smiling at me, and I'm smiling at her. And she's like, "Okay." And then she said, "Should I take some pictures?" Yeah. So she took a few pictures. And then about 15 minutes after the baby was born, I could feel the placenta come, which was just like an easy, just push out.
Yeah.
And so we just sat there, and Sadie was sitting on the toilet, and I was just sitting in the bath, and yeah, just sat there in this kind of just bubble of ecstasy.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah. But I was aware of the time because the host for the Airbnb had been around a couple of days before and asked to come and collect the spare bedding, because she said to me, because the next guest is coming in straight after you.
Okay.
And so I had that bit of information. And so I sat there, and then I looked at Zadie and I said, "When do you think we can leave? Because I'm going to have to go." And she said, "Whenever you're ready." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go and pack the car." So because everything was packed, all the baby stuff, my stuff. So she got like the baby stuff out. She got me clothes out. She got the scissors out so that I could cut the cord when we were ready. And she packed up the car, and then she came back. And then I said, "Oh, let's cut the cord." And we still didn't know. And so I had a look, and I said, "Oh, it's a girl." Like, "Oh, that's nice." And she sterilized the scissors, and we cut the cord, and I sat there for a few more minutes, and then I said to her, "I think we need to go." And she was like, "Okay." And I said, "Can I give you the baby and you get the baby ready?" So I handed her the baby. She got the baby ready. I just stood up because I was running in the bath, and I showered myself down.
Yeah.
I showered like the blood and the poo and stuff that was in the bath. I put down the plug hole to hide the evidence. Got out. I wrapped the baby in the sling, and we got in the car, and we drove across London. And it was nice. I feel like I really got that time with my baby. It just happened to be in a moving car. But it was like a Sunday morning. There was no traffic. We just kind of moved, and we breezed through. And we got to this other Airbnb, and Zadie went and done the lockbox to open up the place. And she said to me, "Okay, go in." And I just wasn't used to someone taking care of me still.
Right.
And I was just like, well, I've got empty hands, thinking, you got a lot of luggage to take in. So she just kind of like tapped me on the shoulder, and she looked at me. She said, "Can you just go inside?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I went in, and I think no one had been in it for a while, and it was winter, and it was really cold in there.
Okay.
And so we got in, and there were loads of candles. Zadie lit the candles, and she wrapped us all up warm. And she got us some food, and she asked me what I was planning to do with the placenta. And I said that I wanted to get the placenta encapsulation done, but I hadn't actually got round to organising it. And she said, okay. So we shared a really nice meal, and I was just sat there with the baby, and I called up my partner to say, okay, the baby's been born, but they were literally closing up the house to get on a plane.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, "Can you just get on the plane? I've arranged for someone to come and meet you."
Yeah.
Because originally I was going to go and get them from the airport. I was like, "Someone's going to come meet you, and they'll bring you here. Just get on the plane and come." And Zadie just really took care of me. And then she said to me, she said, "Right, someone's coming in the morning to collect your placenta." And it was snowing. And she said, "If there's problems because of the snow and they can't get here, just pop it in the freezer," which is what I ended up doing. And I was sitting there, and I was kind of drifting in and out of sleep. And she said to me, she kind of tapped me on the shoulder again. She said, "Do you think you should go to bed?" I said, yeah, maybe. And I got up and I walked into the bedroom and she'd got all my stuff out and she'd laid all the stuff
Oh.
out. She'd made like a changing table for the baby and everything that you would need, she'd made
Mm.
sure was there.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of like, she helped me out a little bit with the feeding and she made sure that I was okay.
Mm.
And and then yeah, after making sure that we're okay, she then left. And yeah, I just spent that night just me and my
Aw.
baby.
That's so
Which,
beautiful.
yeah, which I loved. Like I don't think that I would ever have kind of chose to be on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think I
Yeah.
would have ever chose to exclude my partner and my son from the situation. But actually,
Yeah.
that day that was just me and the baby was just it was
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, and how special too. Like even though it wasn't something you planned, it happened in such a perfect way that, you could have been moving through that experience of your or your birth coming on and getting really panicky, and like stressed out, like, oh my goodness, I'm here by myself. I have to move from Airbnbs and like what's gonna happen? And it could have been something that was really high energy, high stress frequency, but you just did what you needed to do. It was like, I can't really
Yeah.
do much. Everything's packed up, but I can sit in the bath and just kind of see what happens. And
Mm,
like you said, you got this really beautiful experience with your newborn baby,
yeah.
just the two of you.
And I think booking the doula was a game changer
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
even though I was on my own, I kind of wasn't. I knew that she was coming. I
Yeah.
knew that she was reliable. I knew that that would all I knew that she was going to sort out this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, if I hadn't
Oh,
done that, I
mm.
I, I would have probably had to possibly phone an ambulance
Yeah.
and go into the hospital.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would have been so different. But wow, she sounds like an amazing person, amazing woman to give you that birth support because, like you said,
Yeah.
you got to the next Airbnb, she took care of everything. She set up your space, got you all nice and cozy and comfy. She fed you. That's what you
Mm,
need. Even if you have your whole family there with you, it is nice to have that person that is just dedicated to making sure that you are fully set up and
yeah.
situated with that new baby.
And I think that's where I'm at now. Like my beliefs are just that birth need, like for me personally, it needs them, the women around me
Mhm.
to hold the space. Like
Mhm.
that's what it is. I understand that I need to be held in a certain way and it needs to be
Yeah.
done by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's why I continue to learn about birth.
Mm-hmm.
I learn a lot about birth now.
Yeah.
And I think because we need to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have children and maybe one day they might have children and
Yeah.
I'm bringing it back and I'm
Yeah.
learning about birth and I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning about death. And as we go on, we're learning about everything in between because
Mm-hmm.
that was, I feel like what is out there and the systems. And I look at people and I just think, you're not okay.
Yeah.
And um and that's a very serious situation right now. But all I can say is you're not having me and you're not having my family.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that story was just so, and such a drastic shift from your first birth,
Mm,
from just, feeling in between your legs, feeling something coming out, lying in the bathtub, just thinking, "Oh, okay, I guess this is it, with the second babe to having that first child being forcibly removed from your body when you probably would have just been able to naturally birth without the forceps if you were given that time and that space and that peace to
yeah.
relax into it. But you learn as you go along, and like you said, there's 8 years between your children, so I'm sure all of that learning about yourself and how you were sticking up for yourself and creating boundaries for your family was the perfect things that you needed to be able to be so settled in this birth experience that you had this second time around, even though you were completely by yourself. Not completely
Yeah.
by yourself, because your friend Zadie did come shortly thereafter, but in those immediate moments, you were able to handle it and have that
Mm.
conscious recognition of, I can do this because I'm a woman and this is what I'm made for, and my body knows how to birth. So,
Yeah,
wow. Oh,
definitely.
your story is just so, so incredible. I'm so glad I got to hear them both. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, this is so lovely. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about these birthing experiences or your postpartum times? Oh, one question before you answer that one. How was the breastfeeding journey with this second babe?
It was like just instantly fine.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Like, yeah, just instantly. Um, yeah,
Mm.
it was great. We both just took to it straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I decided within pregnancy, I started announcing when people knew that I was pregnant, I started announcing that we will be taking no visitors,
Okay.
at least for the first month,
Yep.
um, which was my way of just keeping my space safe. I thought if
Mm.
I want to invite someone in, I
Mm-hmm.
can. But the fact is that I'm going to throw something out there that just says, this is not personal to you. This is what I'm doing.
Yep.
Um, I'm just not having anyone around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, within the within the pregnancy, I learned about the functional things like registering the birth,
Mm.
and stuff like that that went quite smoothly for
Okay.
me. I hear more and more that it's not the case, but it went smoothly for me, so I was grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the I left a massive part out about how the midwives were trying to contact me and trying to scaremonger me when I informed them that I wasn't going to stay in their care and to
Uh,
free birth. But originally, I was planning to call them out after I'd birthed this placenta,
mm-hmm.
because that would have taken care of the birth registration.
Right. Yeah.
But in the end, I thought, actually, I understood that the postpartum was almost as important as the birth, and that they would walk into my space and they would mess it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so I got a call from my GP about 2 weeks after my daughter
Okay.
was born,
Yeah.
who I've known for quite a while, this GP, so he was quite friendly to me. And he said, so what's going on? I said, oh, I had a baby. And they were
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we're wondering what happened. Do you mind coming in and registering them? So I said, no, that's not a problem. I thought, I'm not going to cause any issues with you.
Yeah.
And I jumped on a bus and I just went and done it. There was no appointment. I just went to reception and done it so that
Right.
they could see that I'm not being difficult for the sake of being difficult.
Right. Okay.
And then they basically asked me to come in for an 8-week appointment.
Mm.
And I thought, if I don't do this, you might contact social services. So at this point, I'm going to take my baby in to see you.
Okay.
And I saw a different GP, not my usual one, who just could not stop praising my baby. Like, oh, she's
Mm.
very alert. She's very
Mm.
this, she's very that. And I'm like, yeah, good baby. And but then kind of saying things like she couldn't understand why I free birthed, and I didn't want to go because I think you people are dangerous and
Yeah.
I'm going to stay away from you. I just kind of had this thing. I said, oh, well, I just don't think that birth is a medical event. Like,
Mm.
so I just didn't feel the need.
Mm-hmm.
And she could not understand. And she done an eye check, and she was like, yeah, that she couldn't believe how my child at 2 months was following around the
Mm-hmm.
room.
Mm-hmm.
And then she done this stuff, and then she was sitting typing into the computer, and I could just tell she wasn't satisfied by just leaving it. There
Okay.
had to be something. So then
Yeah.
she said something like, oh, the eyes. And she made up some absolute bullshit about the color of the eyes, and that
Mm.
that could be to do with the pigmentation.
Oh
because the
God.
child's black or something.
Mm.
And I just thought, and she actually went out and she got a second doctor
Oh
to
gosh.
come in. But this second doctor wasn't aware of the situation. So that doctor just basically had an attitude of, I don't understand why you just brought me in here.
Right, you're wasting my time.
You wasted my time. And it was all done in front of me. So I had this slight smirk. And she's
Yeah.
going, oh, but and she's trying to explain to the second doctor what she's trying to see. And the doctor's just going, no, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
why have you called? He literally said, why have you called me in here? And I kind of just, I smiled. And then she said, okay, so the one thing you've missed out on the vitamin K because you weren't being seen. And she kept on saying, so we could give that. And I just thought, right, all I'm going to say is I'm going to think about it just to get myself out without doing anything that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll think about it. And she didn't know how to actually administer the vitamin K when it's not done within the immediate birth situation. So
yeah.
she said, oh, can you? I said, I'll think about it. And she wasn't happy with that. So I had to then agree to physically take the prescription, the written prescription from her. So I had to go and wait in the reception while she figured out how to do this.
Oh gosh.
So then she spent a little time doing that. She'd written it out and she came and found me in the reception. She handed me the prescription and she came really close to my face and she said, because if you don't take it, your baby could hemorrhage in the brain and die. And then she ran off.
Oh my God.
And I looked and I thought, you're a nutter.
That's crazy.
Like, what? Like, and you know, sometimes people can slightly get to you. And she started me from me just being like, no, about the vitamin K. I started to think maybe I should do a little bit more research. So I kind of shifted a bit. And then she done that move and I thought, you're not all right. You're not all right. So why on earth would I be taking any advice from you?
Yeah.
Of what to do with my baby?
Totally. Yeah. And it had already been 8 weeks. Like if your baby needed the vitamin K, something would have happened within that 8-week time frame. So taking it later, from what I understand, doesn't even do anything. It's not like it needs to be that immediate kind of timing, or else 8 weeks later, it's like there's no point in doing it. So I don't know what she was on about.
I've kind of got the feeling from her that she didn't know what she was on about. She actually didn't. And it was just, this is what you do to babies when they're born. This is the checklist.
Yeah.
And doesn't actually know what it is or why.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. So then how long was it after the birth that you came back to Grenada with the family and the new baby?
I think she was 2 months.
Oh, okay.
She was
wow.
2 months old. Yeah. It was just a matter of getting the passport.
Okay. Yeah. And then once you got it, you could fly down. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think I've been left alone. I think that they have understood to leave me alone. But yeah, I just have to wait and see, because it's also the health visitor. I know I saw the health visitor with my son a few times as routine, and they also said rubbish to me.
Yeah.
I remember once they said to me when they saw him at 2 and I was still breastfeeding, they gave me this whole speech about how cow's milk is better.
The breast milk? Oh gosh.
Than breast milk. And it was, and they were telling me something, it was about it, full fat, not being pasteurized. And I was thinking, that's not what it is. And also, is my breast milk pasteurized? That you're trying to suggest? And and I just learned that these people just have no idea about birth and children.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah, they literally know nothing. It's shocking because they're supposed to be like these medical experts, yet they are just giving information that is totally whacked out and crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's just beyond me,
Hmm.
and I can't.
Hmm.
I think it's laughable
Yeah,
if it
totally.
wasn't so bad, because the
Yeah,
amount of women that, and children that they do destroy, they do.
yeah.
They just, I think their intentions is to take away any intuition,
Yeah,
and then
totally.
therefore they have you and they have your baby, and they probably have them for life.
Oh, totally. Unless you break free. Yeah. And it's like the only expert on your birth, your body, your baby is yourself. Like the example that you used with your first when you were sleeping and putting the baby in the Moses basket and not being able to sleep. And then you finally had the amazing sleep when the two of you slept together and it was just like, oh, light bulb. Like
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
yeah,
Like that's the mother's intuition. Oh, okay, if I just sleep with my baby next to me and then I can just put my breasts in their mouth when they stir, I'm able to get a full night's sleep. But
yeah,
like you said, that nurse or whomever is like, oh, that's dangerous. Don't sleep with your baby. And it's like, well, people have been doing this since the beginning of time and it works. You know, it just
yeah,
works because mother and baby are meant to be together constantly all of the time. And you can have restful sleeps throughout the night when you're co-sleeping with your child. That's just how
yeah.
it's designed. It's designed to work perfectly.
It's such a game changer, such a game changer. I really enjoy motherhood. But
Hmm.
I'm telling you, if I wasn't getting my 8 hours sleep, I wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I'd find
Yeah.
it really hard.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Oh, Bria, I just love having this conversation with you. It's so beautiful. You're so
Thank you.
knowledgeable. You're just so, yeah, tuned in and tapped into yourself and who you are and how you mother. And it's really beautiful. So I'm so grateful that you've shared all of this information with me and your stories and that other women get to hear this too,
Yeah.
because there's going to
Thank you.
be, yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause listening to other women really helped me. And I
Hmm.
think, like, I just love to be able to give back.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the best way is through the story medicine, through the anecdotal stories that don't make sense in the medical model, but they make sense because you're a mother who lived it. You know, that's why we
Mm,
need to hear these stories because I don't care about case studies or if it's evidence based, all of that stuff is just whatever. I like the stories from the mother who says, this is what I went through. This is what I did. This is what I learned. And here I am. That's the
yeah.
best way.
And it's such an important movement, I think, that you're doing, because the one thing that I find quite frustrating, and it does bother me a lot of the time, is like a lot of the free birth movement in general still kind of doesn't relate to the fact that Black women and brown women and Indigenous women have a different experience.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Because I feel like to me, it feels like the birth system is so bad
Mm.
right now that it's now reaching the white women.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of women, there's no acknowledgement that this has been going on for a very long time
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, so much of it, I can't relate to them. I have to distance myself even from in the free birth community, that it's not,
Yeah.
my experience is not your experience.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. We've been living this for way longer and been free birthing, as obviously all women have been doing this since the beginning of time, but for women of color, Indigenous women, we had kept on to these traditions even before free birthing in this new era, this new age became a thing again because we weren't even allowed to
Mm,
birth in hospitals just because of the way that we looked and were presented. It was either birth in the
yeah.
hospital and be used as a guinea pig where you or your baby will most likely die because they're just experimenting on you, or
Mm,
birth at home in the safety of your home with the granny midwife that knows how to take care of you, right? And these are
yeah.
the traditions we've kept on through all of this, through the whole medical midwife movement, through this new age free birth movement. And it needs to be talked about. It needs to be shared. Like you said, we can't relate because we have that different experience, because this is like all we know. This is all that we have gone through. And then when we do get accepted into the hospital, we're traumatized, we're violated, our babies are dying, our mothers are dying because we're not being respected. So it's important that these stories are shared, and that there is a space for us as women of color, Indigenous women, to speak our truths in a space that is actually going to be held in a way where our voice is celebrated, and not just like, oh, and now we have this mother on for Black History Month, that's not,
because that's what people
cool.
say to me. They'll kind of go, oh, they talk about birth, and then they go blah blah blah, and like if you're a Black or brown woman, it's a lot more dangerous. And I just sit there and I think, what was the why have you just made that comment to me? Like,
totally.
I get a lot of that in my family. And I just sit there and think, that's just something that's come out of your mouth. Like, there's been no thought put into those words whatsoever.
Totally.
So I really appreciate the fact that you create this space.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's because of women and mothers like you that it keeps growing. And so I'm grateful for you as well. You can also find Bria on one of her 2 Instagram pages, either birth_boundaries_Bria or citizens_of_the_world ABC. That's Birth Boundaries Bria or Citizen of the World ABC. Thank you so much, women, for listening to this latest episode of the Free Birthing in Color movement. If you want to continue supporting this movement and all that comes with it, please give a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Like the videos on YouTube and share this episode with some of your friends. As reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and the content that I'm creating, it only takes 2 minutes to show your support through a 5-star rating, a small written review, and a share. If you want to give a monetary donation to help with the back-end costs of keeping everything that is happening within this movement going, you can send your donations through PayPal via the link in the show notes. And again, as reciprocity for the work that I'm doing and creating, I'm so grateful when those donations come through. I have many other avenues of work that I've created, such as Portals of Wisdom, which are educational guidebooks for women to reclaim and remember their personal bodily sovereignty. I have one-to-one activation sessions and one-to-one or group mentorship opportunities, as well as an amazing course called Cyclical Woman that is a deep dive into the natural cycles of Mother Earth and connecting into your internal rhythms in relation to where Mother Earth is at any given moment. And lastly, I want to mention again the Free Birthing in Color community. It is open for enrollment, so please, if you want to create a deeper sense of connection to myself and other women navigating the same phase of life that you're in, please, please, please come and join us, and let's create something truly beautiful in there. All information can be found within the show notes below, or you can go to primalwomanportal.com and you'll find everything that you need. I'll see you in the next episode.